All right. Hey, how are you doing?
Good. How are you guys? I just got off the doors. I'm sorry if I look a mess.
Oh, please. You look totally fine.
How have you guys been?
Oh, no, Laura is actually camping, and we were just talking about those storms the other night.
I remember, Laura, you told me you were going to, where did you tell me you were going?
We went to
Mustang
the
Island?
Texas, right, the Texas coast. So
remember.
yes, now we're at Goose Island. So
Okay. I was actually talking to my fiance about that. I was like, someone told me they're going to Mustang Island. Like, sounds cool. We've never been. Can we go? And he's like, if you ever get some time off. And I'm like, yeah, you're right.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. But yeah, that does sound good. No, yeah, good for you. Seriously. All right, here we go.
Are you guys in an Airstream?
no, I wish not that fancy. It's
Okay,
just a regular trailer.
well, you're living my fiance's dream. Let me tell you, during the COVID pandemic, he was like online looking up these camper trailers, the pop-ups. He had like visions of grandeur that we were going to be out there doing this stuff.
I think handy.
Yeah, I think we all kind of had like once like remote and all this other stuff. It was like, yes, we can do all these amazing things. And yeah. It was like, now we have time at home. I can do this and this and this. And I was like, okay, maybe it wasn't the time that was preventing me from doing those.
Exactly. I'm so excited about this guest speaker.
Yes. I've been meaning to ask Kat to come in, but yeah, she's the new, well, I guess not new, because obviously she's been involved a while. But yeah, the Collin County Moms Demand Action. So like I know her obviously through Moms Demand Action. So we've interacted quite a bit and got to be sassy at well, pre-COVID at least, got to be sassy at Collin County Commissioners Court meetings together. So that was fun.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really like looking forward to see what she's going to say, because I know that, no, I don't need to thank you, babe. I know that they're going, we passed, this horrible bill last session. And so I'm curious what they're going to do to help kind of rein some of that bill in. I know that the police unions testified against it. I know that there's a lot, there's a lot of movement against this. So I'm just curious to hear what they're doing, because I know they're drafting legislation now.
Yeah.
For the next session. So I'm really interested to hear like how they're.
No, yeah. Well, and police unions testified against permitless carry too, and they weren't listened to. But yeah, no, that is, like I said, like that is one thing. Like with Moms Demand Action, you've got both the like police brutality as gun violence, and you have the like we testified together against bad gun bills, and we give out gun locks and all this other stuff. Like both of those go, hand in hand. Like you can support and hold accountable. So yeah, know that we would speak with them against permitless carry, against a lot of other really bad gun bills, and then also, of course, yeah, like we would partner with them and say like, hey, here's gun safety, keep them locked, keep them unloaded. Here's gun.
I mean, they even have like they even have because I'll be honest, we're in Texas, and in my family, we own firearms, and we own them in a safe way. And we were even looking, there's new technology now that's like fingerprint.
Yes.
That it won't even, the gun won't fire unless it's the right, so
and that is excellent. Yeah, no, those are super secure, because that's the thing with Moms Demand Action. Like they're nonpartisan and they're not anti-gun. They're anti-gun violence. So yeah, they're all about that. They're very obviously against ghost bills, et cetera, or ghost guns. So yeah.
Oh yeah, the printing them, printing the 3D printing of oh yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That is, yeah, I'm afraid. I mean, because that's all, honestly, that's just the beginning of what we, so.
Yeah. All right, let me let me get through our business. Let me straighten my hair a little bit here. I'm like shedding all over the place. It's so annoying.
I'll mute my.
Oh no, you're good. Yeah. All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'll do the business meeting and then we can get later to our speaker and some Q&A. Oh, 1 second. I'm sorry. Someone texted me and said they were in the waiting room. Oh, wow. I'm glad she reached out to me. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Let me get this out of full screen mode so I can actually let people in. Okay. Did that not work? Okay, there it goes. Awesome. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah. I am the current president of Women Organizing Women Democrats. Tonight, our speaker after our member meeting is going to be Catherine Vargas. She is the Collin County Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America current local group leader. Moms Demand Action is a national group. They are nonpartisan. So they come out and they speak with all kinds of groups and people to spread the anti-gun violence message. We also, of course, they also work with a lot of the student groups like March for Our Lives, Students Demand Action, etc., Teachers Demand Action, because obviously there's a lot of teachers that are absolutely disgusted by a lot of the things that we are seeing in schools. But we are going to start with our business meeting. So, yes. So membership committee wants to make sure that we remind everyone to renew their membership. It is only $30 a year. And we use that money, of course, to go towards supporting women candidates. And we have a lot of really cool ones this year, especially here locally. We've got former board member Sheena King, who Laura will talk about in our general meeting. Or actually, I might talk about that because I know you were on vacation, so I got you back. And then, of course, we also have board member Caroline Werner, that is in the runoff election for Collin County Democratic Party chair. So that is super exciting. We are very much looking forward to voting for her. So yes, please make a plan to go vote in the runoff election. Runoff is very important. Yes, you did just vote. You will vote again before November. So as that gets closer, of course, we will make sure we provide some information. If you are unable to make it to the polls, we also, of course, have rideshare to vote. And they are amazing. If you are a student, the dues are only $15 for the year. And fundraising. So this is one, there's a couple people that have reached out to me and I'm going to make sure I reach out to them. But if I have not already, please reach out to me again. We are wanting to do an in-person fundraiser slash, oh my God, we can actually touch and hug each other this summer. So we are very excited about that. And we want to get a small team together to actually plan that out. And I know a couple of people like that's kind of their bread and butter, like that's where they get excited. I am not a party planner, so I would appreciate any help that we can get. But yes, please reach out. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be so good to see and get to hug. And we're going to try to obviously make sure that we have access for Collin County, at least thought about, so we can make sure we can have a safe and responsible amount of people. And yes, so legislative committee, Mahela was actually mentioning a little bit earlier when we were chatting that yes, there are some so many bad bills that passed in the 2021 session. And I also wanted to, that's for Texas specifically, I also wanted to draw some attention to the national ones though. These are actually some that were good. On the left there, you've got 3 that were just signed by the president. I mean, not like literally just now, but recently were signed by the president. And you've actually got a Democrat that is submitting for a bill to make insulin affordable. So that's very exciting. The House obviously has passed like all of the bills, and the Senate is just sitting there twiddling their thumbs because Mitch McConnell. So yes, the House is just like chugging them out. We need to make sure our people in the Senate are held accountable to actually, do their job. But yes, so if you are interested in taking part of that committee, obviously we would love to have you. We do want to make sure that we bring out really everybody, not only for the state level, but also for the national level. There's some really important bills that are either in discussion or desperately trying to be passed. And of course, it's also good to know here's who represents me, and this is an election year. So one of the other things too that I really liked was this particular website. And I know everyone kind of has their own like app or website, but this is also a good one. It's called govtrack.us. It goes into here's what this means. Here's who sponsors it. There's a button at the top that says call or write Congress. You can add it to the list. You can tweet it, like it's all kind of right there. And there's like a list. So it'll actually show you who it was like on this specific affordable insulin. Now, there are 30 co-sponsors. No guesses for how many of them are Republican. It's a big number. So yes, it's really nice to be able to have that oversight and see what our Democrats in the House are doing. And then yes, candidates. I'll let Laura talk.
Okay, you can hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, I wasn't sure if my mic switched or not. So we have one more like day to get the endorsement applications in. They're due on midnight, April 1st. And we're having both May and November elections apply at the same time, so they all get equal opportunity for consideration and for funding. We have changed the endorsement policy a little bit, and you can see that on wowdems.org if you haven't already. The main changes is that we are doing local elections again. If people are willing to be endorsed by Democratic organization, by Democratic PAC, and if they are people that align with our values. And also we narrowed our focus to Collin County only because that's where our membership is and where our knowledge is. And so we don't give kind of short shrift to people in other counties where we don't really know anybody or what's going on. So we're really, we're able to cooperate with the Democratic Party, the county party, to use their list to make sure everybody gets invited in a timely manner to apply. That if people did not receive an application for some reason, it seems like they're going through pretty well, but if they haven't, or if you have questions, email me at this address here, candidates@wowdems.org. We are announcing runoff races after the runoff is completed and the nominee is decided. But we do have situations where we will endorse before the runoff if there are not women competing in the runoff. And if it, early money is going to make a difference. And of course, as Sarah mentioned, that's where, oh, I'm not flipping the slides. Sarah's mentioned
I'm sorry.
flipping the slides.
There you go.
I hit the button to flip it. So we endorsed Sheena King probably before our January meeting because it's a new district. We really needed to educate the population and get out ahead of her competitors who were fighting each other. And Sheena wasn't fighting anybody. Because she was the only person running, and she's a wonderful candidate and is doing such good work in 61. It's going to take extreme turnout to get Sheena elected. So we did endorse Sheena. So expect some more endorsements to come out very soon. We'll endorse the non-runoff people as soon as we get done with the process so that, that can have some more mileage for them, especially if there's any local people. And then we'll endorse in a second batch any runoff results. Absolutely. If anyone has any questions, just let me know.
Yeah, we're very much excited for Sheena, former board member. I originally met her actually through Moms Demand Action. So that's also very exciting too. When you have someone who is very excited and they're like, I think I might run for office. And you're like, hell yeah, girl. So yes. Also, since Caroline has joined, hi Caroline. Thank you for coming because I know you were like very, very busy. But yes, she is running for county chair, as I mentioned earlier, for Collin County. I'll let you just briefly introduce yourself. You're a board member, so you get special treatment.
I'll take what I can get. So I appreciate it. I'm sorry I'm late. I had horrible internet issues.
Oh no, I know you're totally good. Oh, let me
So,
see. So you can,
yeah.
there you go.
So I am Caroline Werner. I'm running for county chair for Collin County. If you're not in Collin County, you can still support me and give me money, but you unfortunately cannot vote for me. So I am the founding president of Plano Area Democrats. I have helped on campaigns. I'm a board member for WoW Dems. I have done a lot throughout the county and throughout the area. And, I think we just need some change and some new energy coming to the party. So that's what I'm running to bring.
No, we are super excited, not only obviously because she's a board member, but also just because we definitely need some new blood, and we're excited to have a woman. So yes, and then I will wrap up our business meeting, and then we can actually chat with our treasurer report. So we like to say, obviously, that every dollar that we can, we want to go to women candidates, which means that, again, you have not joined or renewed your membership, join and renew your membership, because your $30 a year can actually go towards these amazing women who you might not be like, hey, I know exactly, who to give my money to or who all these people are. Like Laura mentioned, we actually honed our focus, especially since we are trying to also get more of a local focus. We want to make sure that we get these women empowered and elected and really amplified. So the more that you can give comfortably, we would really appreciate it, because your money does go directly to these candidates. So we are super, super excited about it. Men can get our endorsement, but not our the money, because obviously we are all about empowering and electing women. So yes, and I will say also, I have a slide on this, but Trans Visibility Day, we mean all women. We absolutely support and empower all women. So seriously, thank y'all. You can see obviously that we do things like we do have insurance that we pay for annually. We do still need a volunteer for Shopify. We are trying to get our store set up, and we are not as awesomely technologically familiar with that. So there are a couple of volunteers I would love to have on that, kind of help run that store. And then Constant Contact is obviously our newsletter, et cetera, which we have been retooling. So I have had some feedback, both on the, hey, I really liked the newsletter, where has it been? The communications team and I have been really diving into, okay, like, what should our newsletter have in it? What does the reading look like? What do the click-throughs look like? So I do apologize, because there definitely has been a skip in that. So we are getting back into the newsletter. If you do have feedback for us, like what you would like to see, what you think should be included, if you would like to write an article for it, please reach out and let us know. We would be very excited to see that. So thank you. And then what questions do y'all have while we can just kind of chat before our actual like full member meeting? Great question. Yes. Someone had messaged me and said, is it time to renew for some members? How does that work? Caroline, I'll actually let you answer that one, since you happen to be here. Get you some more airtime.
Absolutely. So membership runs from January 1st to December 31st. So if you haven't renewed your membership this year, then it's time. Like Sarah was saying, this money goes to local women candidates. And I know this is an unpopular opinion, but Beto does not need your $25. Beto has a lot of money. $25 to a local candidate. I'm not even saying this for me. This is something I've been passionate about for years. To a judicial candidate, to a state house candidate, that goes so far for the races that actually affect you. Because, governors are important, but the people that are on your school board are going to have a huge impact on what's going on in your life. So consider donating to WoW Dems. above whatever your membership is. Membership starts at, I believe, $25. Don't quote me at that. It's been a long day at work. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you know, the money here goes directly to local women candidates and has a huge impact in these races.
Yes, no, and that's a great point because you're right. Like, so in often do we even get judicial candidates running? But to be able to actually make sure we amplify and share these local candidates, like, because you've seen across the country or even, you know, here locally, what these school board meetings look like now. I mean, they're pretty wild. We need to make sure we get some reasonable people in there. We had great success since, you know, Caroline obviously is the Plano area Democrats president. They had a candidate selection committee that obviously had a great success because the Plano City Council ended up with a lot of reasonable people, including the mayor. So it really does make a difference when you give and focus locally, which is why we're really trying to hone in and do this proof of concept by saying, okay, like we're starting in Collin County. We know that these nonpartisan races will not always say, hey, you know, we want this Democratic group to support us, and that is okay. We just want to make sure that they know that it is an option, that they can have us behind them getting the word out. Even if they don't want our like official support, we can still say like, hey, this is someone that's really reasonable, really amazing. Please go volunteer. Please go vote for them. But yes, like Carolina was mentioning, like these big ticket top things, like they $25, $30 a year, like that does not go as far with them as it does with us. So we truly do appreciate everyone who has donated and who is going to be donating. Thank you.
Spot. I am the local group lead for the Collin County Moms Doing Action group. I got my mom's shirt because I thought I was going to go home and change and all that. I have my notes at home, so I'm just going to be winging it. And luckily, though, this is something I'm really passionate about. Sarah is actually who first got, not necessarily got me involved. Actually, she was. You know, I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I hadn't gotten involved yet. And those were after El Paso. And of course, all the moms groups, everyone was talking about it because how close it was to our community. And Sarah suggested, hey, if this is something you really care about, you've got to get involved. And so that's what I did. I met with her a few days later at a meeting. And then now somehow I'm our local group lead. But really what she had said about if this is important to you, you've got to get involved is really the message that I was going to share today with all my notes that I have. So much was impacted from the last election in our state ledge this year. We saw permitless carry go through and other extreme bills that we thought in past sessions were never going to go through. They didn't have support even from our local reps. You know, we are a nonpartisan group, so I'm not going to label party or anything, but we know who our reps are, you know, in Collin County, and they did not support permitless carry before. But what we're seeing right now is just a very emboldened group, and they wanted to pass more. And there is fear of, or not fear, it's legitimate. We know there's things they're going to want to continue to push in this next session. And so what Sarah said to me was that if this was important, I needed to get involved. And whether it's gun reform is your issue or something else is your issue, you've got to get involved. You got to figure out what it is. With moms, we would love to have you. Sorry, there's lots of cars going around. With moms, we'd love to have you. It is such a huge impact. You know, we're getting ready to gear up for elections, kind of waiting for some of the primaries to get through. We know we got a lot of runoffs going on in our area and other areas, but sometimes, you know, we are starting to have some endorsements and other things. And we're really going to be going this time, luckily, door to door. Last time everything was over the phone. I think that really hurt us a little bit, but we're going to be going door to door. When we go on phone, we'll have all kinds of things for people to be involved in. But this is an issue that has such big consequence. And here in Texas, it's everywhere, but especially here, it is such a buzzword topic. And it's that moms are evil, that we're here to take everyone's guns. That's not what we're here for. We just want common sense reform. It's not a lot that we've, you know, asked or fought for, but it's, I mean, we know this is a women's group, so I can say, you know, there's a lot that we have to fight that if we were men, we wouldn't have to deal with. You know, I was down in Austin to testify on permitless carry and some other gun related bills. And the way that we were treated compared to men was absolutely abhorrent. We need more women stepping up. Moms is a great place to do it. It's a great place to really get started. You don't have to know a lot. We can find something for you, whether it's something small. If you're like, hey, look, I don't want to talk to people, that's fine. We'll find something for you. If you love data, got a great data team we can put you in. If we'll find something, and it's really not about what skills you have, what time you have. It's, this is an important issue to me, and what can I do? Sarah, I don't know if you have any questions or concern to go further in, since I don't have my notes.
No, you're totally good. This is so amazing. I'm so glad to have you. And you're totally right. Like that was one of the things that really drew me to Moms Demand Action was exactly that. Like, it doesn't matter what skills, it doesn't matter what time, like there's a role for everybody, whether you have, 5 minutes or 5 hours or 5 days or 5 years, like we want you in whatever capacity we can have you. There's always something to do, whether it's, there was one person that was really passionate about how many, gun stores are local, and she didn't realize that a lot of like private houses had them like, for sale and listed as gun shops. So she put together like this whole project, and there's even like quilters that will put together these beautiful legacy quilts. I mean, I have met some truly amazing people because of Moms Demand Action. And yeah, actually just like Kat, like that was kind of how I came to be too. Cause I was like, oh, cause Collin County spun out of the Dallas group. And I was like, oh, Dallas is, so far away. It's really difficult like to make it to these meetings. And Donna, who's been the Dallas leader forever, she's like, oh, why don't you start a Collin County one? I'm like, walked right into that. So yes, no, it's true. Like when you're passionate about something, you have to get involved, because if not us, then who? Like I love that. Like the people that I've met through it have just been so amazing and so passionate, and we have so much fun, as well as obviously talking about some very serious and uncomfortable things. And yeah, but before you got in, I was also making it, very clear, like, Moms Demand Action is very nonpartisan. We talked with Republicans, Democrats, Independents. It was all about, look, these are the bills. Most people, when you actually talk to them, do not support permitless carry. But, just like we mentioned, during the member meeting, even though, police unions, et cetera, who spoke out vehemently against permitless carry, against a lot of these bad gun bills, the Republican legislators that passed it did not listen. And one of the things that I would say with Moms Demand Action, obviously now I'm very partisan, but at the time it was like, look, we have Republicans who support good gun bills. Here is a list of all of them. Like, if you're a Republican and do not like what these people are doing, get better Republicans representing you.
And back to how I got started and things, I'll share too that, El Paso was close to everyone here, and it was what, and Sarah and I have talked about this as well with our kind of a shared vision that we have for our local moms group, is I feel like we have a responsibility, because the shooter came from here, that we have a responsibility that Collin County is at the forefront of making change on this issue. I feel like once we can get back to in-person meetings, that moms meetings should be packed, that there should be red shirts at every door when we're going and knocking on doors, that every single candidate on either side needs to know moms are coming, and they need to either, if they're with us, they need to have what they're going to do with us, how they're going to fight with us, and if they're not, they have to know we're coming for their seats.
Exactly.
We cannot sit back anymore. El Paso was close, not only from, the shooter came from here. I mentioned my husband's a firefighter with Alan. He's also first generation American. I'm gonna not tear up saying this, but so often he's looked at as, oh, that's just an exception. But no, he's the rule of how immigrants and their children contribute to our society and make it better. And so what happened was just so close to home. I have brown sons. If it had happened here, it could have, he didn't have to leave. It could have been here. Yeah. And I lost sleep for weeks. There's still times now that it's just too much. And you have those things of, again, and we're all women on this call, so it's, you have moments where it's, which kid am I going to cover? Who can run? Who do I have to carry? And we don't have to live this way. Elections have consequences, but they can also bring about change, but we all have to work. We can't, no one that's on this call is going to fool themselves and say this is easy. I think for gun sense candidates, we definitely learned in the last one, there were a lot of races we thought we were going to win that we did not.
Yeah.
We don't live in an area that you cannot be involved.
Yeah.
And I mean, voting's so important. Yes, please get out and vote, but that's not enough. And I can say that on this call because I know if you're on this call that you know it's not enough.
Yeah.
It's who can you bring with you, whether it's someone that you actually know, preferably people that you don't know, because that circle is much, much bigger. What can you do with whatever time and whatever skills you have to contribute? If this isn't the issue for you, there's a ton that you can pick from.
Yeah.
But it's important on every issue, even looking at school boards. You need to ask, hey, are you willing to present a resolution to send home a safe storage contract? You know, Houston ISD, every single parent, just like with their parent-student handbook, saying, I understand that it's my responsibility to safely store weapons, that they are to be stored separate from ammunition, locked, unloaded. And that's my responsibility as an adult.
Exactly.
My children should not have access. And parents have to sign that. Does it mean that every single one is going to abide by that? No. But it's at least there, because there's a lot of people that probably aren't aware.
Yes.
And if there's enough reminders and throughout the school year, on their Facebook page, Houston ISD will put up flyers and things. There's people that, they've just purchased, we've seen sales go up during the pandemic. People are just purchased. Maybe they haven't gotten that far yet in their thinking.
Yeah.
At least that's what I have to think. Maybe they just haven't gotten there yet. And so these reminders have to be there. So even with your school board candidates, elections have consequences when it comes to gun sense.
Yes.
That's something we've really been fighting. We've seen so much in Plano and Frisco, really all the schools we saw in December and January. Schools were getting shut down because of threats that were coming in. We've seen students arrested on Plano campuses this year for having guns on campus. There's no reason that the schools can't do something.
Yeah.
Whatever's happening now is not working. Your police department, chiefs are not elected, but you can write to them and say, hey, can you host a gun lock fair and just give them out? What are you going to do to talk about safe storage? Allen Fire right now is doing a Stop the Bleed campaign, which is wonderful. And I'm grateful for that. That was started after Sandy Hook. But what's the police department doing to talk about safely storing weapons so that we don't have to stop the bleed?
Yeah.
So all these things, it's just such a nuanced issue. And I know everyone on this call knows, because I know if you're on this call, you are involved. And maybe you feel like, I'm already giving myself here, I have nothing else to give. And for some of you, that may be true. But for a lot of us, we probably have another at least 5% to give. Moms could use your help. We've done a lot of regrouping and other things in the last year. And I mean, like every organization, the pandemic has really changed things a lot. It's affected members and everything else and how we're doing things. And we're just now getting back in this swing. So I hope we'll see more of you with moms, but on some issue, because I know if we're all out knocking on doors, a lot of our issues overlap. Gun sense is just the one that's the closest to me. It's the one that I've said, I can't do everything, but I can give my all to this one.
Yes, 100%. No, and that's another thing too, like, even a little something, talking to your pediatrician about hanging up a Be Smart sign, talking to your house of worship or your local business and talking to them about putting up 4006, 4007 signs that basically say like, you cannot bring a gun in here because you don't need a weapon to go grocery shopping. Like, there's little things that you can do that make a really big impact.
Yes, you talk about pediatricians. There's a few of us that I recognize on the call, and I know some of us go to Centennial Pediatrics. Every single checkup, they do put on their little brochure talking about safe storage. That's something that they should do. Your pediatrician should know on your file, do you have weapons in the home, so that they remember at each appointment to talk to you about, are they safely stored at every single appointment. So if your pediatrician doesn't do that, if you're a mom and they don't, talk to them about it. That's actually from the American Association of Pediatrics. Don't say it's for moms or anything. It's not. Obviously, moms, we do encourage it, but that's not coming from us. It's from the AAP. They're all obviously under that umbrella.
Absolutely. No, that's
So-
such a huge one, especially with all the trauma that's going on, obviously with not only school shootings and kids that have had, friends die, but also the medical bills, the trauma that is left over from the shootings themselves and from the drills, knowing that this could happen anytime and that we're acting like, yes, this could happen anytime. Obviously, it's inevitable. So, try to be quiet and, little first graders sing this little song about how we're hiding from a bad guy. Like, I will say, like, when it came to the, pandemic where we did have to have our child, home doing schooling, it was a big weight off my shoulders because I didn't have to worry about him getting shot at school. It was a situation where, like, I know you're here, I know you're safe, I don't have to worry about you doing this extremely traumatic drill because the adults in the room can't do what they need to do.
Yes.
Not the teachers, obviously, they're doing what they can. I mean, the
Yes.
legislators.
Yes. And so often they're not willing to do what they need to do. One of the things, like I said, not enough of our gun sense candidates won that we thought would this past session or election, but we did have enough that permitless carry was going to be as terrible as it is. It was going to be even worse.
Right.
The author was very clear during committee that he wanted no gun-free zones. It was going to be, you could permitless carry into anywhere, and they had to verbally ask you. So it was going to be, your school secretary was going to have to walk up to an armed person and say, you need to leave. And if they refuse, then it was a crime. And it's because moms caught it,
Right.
and we were able to fight it, and we were able to get it. And that's gun sense candidates. And even some people that were not gun sense candidates saw, like, hey, we can't go that far. And we were able to make enough noise and get picked up by media. So as much as there were consequences from the last election, we did do enough to at least stop that. And so Shannon Watts always says you gotta lose forward. And that was one of the reminders that we did lose forward. And that they still know that we're coming. They still know moms are coming. And I think they saw that it was something they try to kind of do sneakily.
Yeah.
The bill that went through was not the one anyone thought was going to go through. None of the gun sense groups, legals team had looked at this particular bill. There were 7 of them presented, and it was thought 2 of the other ones were going to be the ones to go through. So this one sneakily went through. So it was actually just literally a group of moms that happened to have been on Zoom and said, let's read this line by line.
Yeah.
We saw some things, we're like, this doesn't sound right. One happens to be an attorney. She was like, no, this isn't right. This is saying that they could go into a school. So it was literally flagged the night before they started taking testimony in the next committee. And again, we just happened to have just enough to stop that. It was an amendment that was put on the floor. At first was rejected. We were able to put up even more of us. That's when the media started picking up on it, and it was able to end up in the final bill. So as terrible as it was, elections have consequences,
Yep.
but you have to stay involved after too.
Yes.
It's so important to stay involved after. There's so much going on, and I see in a lot of our local groups where people are like, oh, I didn't know about this bill, or how do I get on the mom's page?
Yes.
Every single gun related bill we will have posted. We will have posted with our position on the bill. If it's a more complex one that's not like permitless carry, that's very obvious what it means, we'll explain it. We're always willing to talk. If you need further explanation of what can I do on this other than just calling my rep. Just you have to stay involved on all this stuff. And I know it's been so hard because it's felt like we've all been hammered on so much. So many of us have been shouldering so much more at home than in previous years. And it's been an onslaught of things. Even if we did just focus on gun laws, it was so many more got put through this session than I can remember ever getting put through.
Oh, so
and it was that way on so many other issues. It was as if we were purposely spread thin to put everything through.
Yes.
I say it was as if we definitely were. So I know we've all got some fatigue. I'm hoping that elections energize a lot of us because I know we all get excited, and it's that little bit of hope that keeps us going. But to have that hope, everybody has to be involved. It's not enough. I know we've got some candidates that are on here. Can't say anything about any of you. No, not my mom's shirt. I'm here for moms. But I hope to hear from all of you more soon on this issue. I hope you know how important this is to not just moms, but people in the community. And just because you're on this call or anything else doesn't mean that moms necessarily has your back yet. This issue has to be one of the most important issues. You have to be well versed on this issue.
Yes.
And in our community, there's no excuse not to be. You know, we had the El Paso shooting. Allen also had a mass shooting. We've had 3 linked to our county in the last less than 5 years.
Yeah.
And nothing's happened. We keep electing the same people.
Yeah. And they keep loosening gun bills. Yep.
Yes.
No, and that's actually an excellent point too. Like it affects, you know, children obviously the most. Mahela mentioned it's like one of the leading causes of death, unfortunately, for children, and for women, obviously, it is very highly dangerous. You know, 1 in 50 women are no, it's like every month there's 50 women that are killed in gun violence from an intimate partner. And especially today on Transgender Day of Visibility, like trans women, especially trans women of color, are exceptionally vulnerable to gun violence. And having people filled with hate that happen to also have access to a weapon is exceptionally dangerous for our trans sisters. So this is a really important topic that really spans several things that I guarantee you care very passionately about.
Yes.
I have a question. Working at the legislature and for the last 5 years, I've seen this issue kind of develop. And before it was a lot of men, the 2A men that were coming. The last 2 sessions, they have gotten smart and now they're having women coming and testifying. And I remember, I don't know last session, but I remember the session before that, they were trying to pass the suppressor bill.
Yep.
And they had women going in there saying, well, we need these silencers because our ears hurt when we train with our guns.
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
So what are we doing to kind of combat what they're trying to do? And when I say they, I mean the 2A people and the people that are pushing this type of legislation to make it seem like women are behind these pro-gun bills.
I think a couple of things first. Well, I don't want to say women are monolith. I know some women are not on the side of them, so I don't want to present that either. And then I don't want to say that moms is anti-2A. I know what you mean when you're saying that, but I also know people like to jump on that. You know, we did see that a lot this session. With permitless carry, it came up as well as it's constantly putting us in the victim position. And really what we were doing was just, we had a lot of women speakers. There were more of us than there were of them. But there were also, we had legislators that also spoke up that we were in contact with as well that didn't, and their speeches going through when the bill did get presented saying, why is it, you know, they focused on the men that were saying it, why are you speaking for these women and that they're victims and they need this, but then there's so many that are coming up and saying that's not the case, I'm not safe because of this.
Exactly.
Why aren't we addressing why I don't feel safe? Why don't I feel safe getting out of my car at night? Why don't I feel safe with this? A lot of those people, I won't say all, some of them are coming up and they're speaking from the heart and they've had different experience than I have. And some of them I was able to have a conversation with, you know, while we were there in the committee room, you know, in breaks and things, and just saying, you know, that's not my experience. And let me share with you mine and why I feel this way, and trying to find, remembering that there could be common ground, but some of them are just, they're just there looking for a fight and they like being used as a soundbite.
Yeah.
And it's very unfortunate that some of them are, like you said, that they know that what they say is going to carry more, but that should also empower us knowing that they know that what women say carries more on this issue.
Great point.
Because they did not used to have, I won't say they didn't let them speak, but you, I mean, you know, you've been following this issue for a long time. You said, you know, in the last 5 sessions, you had never seen as many as in the last 2 that have shown up.
Yeah.
And it's because they've realized, but it's to all those women, I also say to look at the respect that's been shown, because we had people from the opposition side that are part of some FBI watch list groups. And the chairman said, this is just like a good old boys club. He was so excited clapping for them. But when moms went up, we were called girls.
Yep.
We were called angry mommies. And at that point, no one had been angry yet. There is such a double standard for us to hold ourselves and be not only more educated on the issue, but to have more composure.
Yep.
I'll go ahead and put Representative White kind of on the spotlight here. Him and I got into a very heated phone conversation. And he had the nerve to call me aggressive. I was very respectful of my comments, but at that point, as he's screaming at me, I pointed out, sir, you're the one that's yelling at me. He told me, I'm not aggressive, I'm assertive. That's what we deal with.
Wow.
And so I don't think, as I know there's gonna be women on that side, I'm not worried about those women because I know how they're really viewed, because I know how we're treated when we don't agree with them.
Yep.
I know that for me to get respect from a lot of our local leaders, I have to present myself as being a first responder wife. And then I'm worth listening to, because until then, it's no.
Yeah.
But it's, oh no, worrying about associations, other things, which I'm not involved in his association things, but there's a lot that goes into, I mean, everyone on this call knows, it is much harder for us to get respect than for white men in particular.
Yes.
They would go up and just spout off nonsense and be joking up there in their testimony, and we'll get claps from our representatives that are sitting up there. And there are moms sharing about their children who have been shot and killed. And there's, they're on their phones, or there's times that they're laughed at. Representative Goodwin laid out a bill. She was passionately fighting for it, and she was laughed at. I didn't see a single male representative get laughed at while presenting a bill that they were passionate about. So that's my long-winded answer of, I'm not really worried about them. I know how they're viewed, and that they're largely being used, but I also understand some of them really do feel that way, and they're not the people that I'm trying to reach.
No, that's a great point, because you're 100% right. Like, internalized misogyny is absolutely a thing. And, we have to act more tough to be part of the boys club. And it is really sad, but yeah, you're exactly correct. Because if they didn't support and agree with that, then they would get even more weight and pressure and burden on them. And we constantly, I remember getting called emotional. It was an emotional argument when I talk about kids getting killed. And I'm like, yes, that is okay. If you're not emotional talking about kids being murdered, I truly do not know what the hell is wrong with you. But it is, in addition, obviously, to the emotional aspect, it is a logical aspect as well, because we know the data, we've seen what happens, we know the consequences, and it is really frustrating, because you're right. Like, they would change meetings like last minute. They would make sure that we didn't know that there's this secret hearing. And thankfully we, thankfully they, as a nonpartisan group, have, groups that are in Austin, and we're able to show up at a moment's notice. But, for the moms that also, had jobs that they weren't able to do from home, we're not able to be part of those conversations intentionally.
Yes, the permitless carry bills were not heard until after 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
At the time, I was 6 months pregnant. I'd already been in the room for like 15 hours, and it just became, once the little boys club, and it was literally said, that's when we were just like, you know what, we're done. And they had waited, because a lot of us had to leave. We had to get back. I had to get back here. My husband was gonna be on shift the next day, so I had to drive back with no sleep, being very pregnant, which is probably not wise. But they, like you said, they do these things. And for permitless carry, they also had a special committee they formed just for it, because it couldn't get through without that.
Yeah.
The rules completely, this last session was really like a line of Whose Line, where the rules don't matter, was what it felt like. It was, we're just gonna do whatever, and we've got to combat that. But I think they also expect for us to be worn down and to not be there. But moms is always going to be there, and we are going to come for their seats. We might not have gotten them last time, but we are coming for seats this session. I
Yes.
can't say anything again. I'm supposed to be here for moms, but I know someone's on the call that's very close to this race. But we've got some promising things going on in 70,
Yeah.
which happens to be where I live. So I'm very excited. I do have hope. I'm like, we can have someone decent in Collin County.
Yeah. No, and it's true. And you mentioned this earlier too, like these people that mention, oh, Second Amendment, like they're taking it and they are twisting it. That is not what the Second Amendment says. It is not what it has meant, except for like in the 90s and early 2000s when it got changed and warped. But yeah, like that was not the founding fathers' intentions. So when these people say like, oh, I'm pro Second Amendment, it's like, don't let them take what that means. Because a lot of Moms Band Action members, leaders, they're gun owners or they have been gun owners. Like I had a 22 rifle under my bed when I got broken into. It literally never crossed my mind to go get that rifle and shoot the person that was coming in. Like literally nothing I owned was worth trying to take someone's life. Like it just does not. And unfortunately, when you have a gun, it is more likely to be used against you. So you've got to make sure you keep it locked and unloaded. It's just so imperative. But yes, like you will get these people that try to twist it and no, don't let them kind of take the message from those of us, like Moms Demand Action that are saying like, this is not what gun sense means.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, like lots of moms do own firearms. Our state legislative lead this past session testified about hers,
Yeah.
and about how she doesn't feel the need to go around without a permit, and she has a permit, and that makes her feel, people can know if they do see her out, this person has gone through a background check. The big thing was, oh, everyone gets it, and everyone on this call knows that you don't have to have a background check in order to purchase one. There's private sales.
Yeah.
There's huge loopholes that just they won't touch. There has to be a lot more of calling out, but we need more people in order to do that. We need more people that are shouting out these messages, whether it's on Twitter, it's in person showing up in Austin, which I know is hard. We're not far, but we're not close either.
Yeah.
We're all involved in so much. And like I said, there was just so much this session that I feel like you would have to just move to Austin
Yeah.
to testify on everything that you probably wanted to. So it's just hard, but you've got to find the issue that you can be passionate about. If it is gun reform, I'd love to speak with you more. Find the Collin County Moms group on Facebook. Come join us. If you're like, hey, I just want to be on the page to see, cool. If you're like, hey, I want to be involved, what can I do? Send me a message through there. You'll see me on there a lot. Again, my name is Catherine Vargas. You'll see me on there a whole lot. And she's like, I want to get more involved. What can I do? And I'll get you plugged in.
Yeah. And I want to say too, like for volunteers, like, there's leaders and members that have guns. There's leaders and members that, if it was up to them, they would burn all the guns and melt them and make sculptures. Like, it doesn't matter where on the spectrum of that you are, like there is a place and a role for you.
Yes.
That is awesome. No, I know that tonight obviously was not how you intended it to end up, but I truly appreciate you taking the time and coming to talk about this, because it is such an important topic.
It is. And again, we're nonpartisan. I know this is a partisan group.
Yeah.
Even with the candidates that you're supporting, I hope that everyone is asking them
Yes.
more than just what's on their website. What are you going to do? How do you feel about this? What are you going to say on the floor? Because these bills are going to come up.
Yep.
And are you just going to be quiet, or are you going to be someone that's standing up? Dallas, we had Crockett out of Dallas, who was just a fireball and was constantly up there and said, even on bills that we knew were going to go through, was fighting and said, I'm going to make sure that I have the sound bites that's going to get picked up by, all the different media outlets through TikTok now. It's what all the hip kids are getting their news from. All these things that are going to get picked up to where you can't get away with the lies that you're perpetuating in order to get these passed. And so I think that's really important to know. What are you going to say when these things happen?
No, and that's a great point. Like, because I am partisan. So what I can say is, like, just because someone is a Democrat does not mean that they are a gun sense person. Like, I had to have a very uncomfortable conversation with Royce West. Like, Royce West is an amazing supporter when it comes to reproductive rights. He is not a good partner for us when it comes to gun sense. He was one of the sponsors of getting, you know, guns and cars in school parking lots. And when I tried to ask him about it, you know, first he was like, oh, I don't think I would vote for that. I'm like, dude, you're literally like a sponsor on one of these bills that I'm talking about. And he was like, oh, well, we don't always read the bill. I'm like, okay, first of all, that's not helping. And number two, it was literally in the title. Like,
Yeah,
no.
and them not reading the bill, though, it really does happen. There was another gun bill that it wasn't one of the bigger ones that moms as a whole fought, but I did it since my husband is a firefighter. There was a bill that did pass
Yes.
to have them be able to carry. Luckily, they had to amend it. Enough associations spoke out against where it's not all departments, but those in smaller towns can, which is it still affects bigger towns because you have mutual aid agreements and all that.
Absolutely.
But within the bill, it actually allowed. It would cancel out death benefits if a firearm was involved. If another firefighter's firearm was involved. So if an accidental discharge or, you know, they're having cases of physical violence between people within the same department and other things like that, those death benefits we void out. And that's what they had to do because the city can't be liable if the state's forcing them to allow them to carry while on duty. There were a huge number of issues with it. But it's something that, you know, I had to go fight, and there were so many people that I thought were gun sense candidates that voted for it because they didn't know, and they thought, oh, well, they need it if they go into a school building or like they don't go into active situations. There's no reason that they should.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things they don't know. You can't expect if you do have a rep that you really align with on things, don't expect that they know, even if it seems obvious. Still make those calls. When you're calling people on committees, call every single person. Don't just say, oh, this person's this party or this person's this party. Call.
Agreed.
It gets recorded. And if they're on a committee, they're gonna keep it. Does it weigh as much if you're the constituent? No, but when they're on committee, they all still matter.
Absolutely. And make sure you tell them that, like, when you call, like, you know, no, I'm not part of, you know, your specific constituency, but you are representing me on this committee as part of Texas. Yeah, that's a great point. And I will say, like, when we had our, you know, big February, like 2017 meeting, like, one of the candidates that we had to come introduce themselves as, like, you know, I support gun sense, was a Republican. And he got basically almost a standing ovation because everyone was just so happy. And I'm like, this guy probably thinks, like, you know, we're all like one particular party. And I had to be like, you know, yes, we're not partisan, but we're just so excited, you know, that you are very open and verbally saying that you support these very common sense gun violence prevention measures.
Yes, and they're still out there. We're seeing a lot more extremism that's out there.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, we all know what's happening. What I say.
No, I truly, truly appreciate it. And then does anyone have a question? I know you've got a kiddo that unfortunately is not having a good evening, so I don't want to too much.
I don't think there's many more involvement. They're watching a movie, so I think they're fine.
Oh, good. No, I was telling everyone, like, you know, yes, like a lot of the volunteers, like, our parents. So yes, we'll have, you know, a kiddo on the hip while we're doing public speaking. You know, we'll have a kiddo on a tablet at our feet while, you know, we're in a meeting. Like, that's what we do.
Yes, there's no shame. I didn't vote. There were other moms that had toddlers that were there in Austin, and you know what? iPads are great there. Like, there's no limit on technology whenever you're doing mom.
No, yeah, that's why we do what we do, is to make sure they're safe. So, like, I will happily throw you in front of a tablet for an hour if it means I stand up, speak out, and don't get you shot. All right, y'all. What questions do you have for Kat? Don't be shy. All right, I'll ask one that came across to me earlier. Talk to us, you mentioned a little bit, but talk to us a little bit about, like, the loopholes that you mentioned, because there are definitely still some questions when it comes to things like that, like the boyfriend loophole or the Charleston loophole.
Yeah, you know, the Charleston loophole, if their background check doesn't go through as quickly as some people would like, you know, they can obtain a weapon. And there's so many, and there's, you don't have to have a background check. You can go through private sale. That is how Odessa happened.
Yeah.
Which made it even more frustrating as we were talking about this. And one of the Odessa victims' sister came and testified, saying, like, stop saying this. This is a lie. This is how he got a weapon. You don't have any bills to try to close this loophole, but you're pushing these other extreme things.
Yes.
So that's the biggest one, is I'm saying you do have to get a background check. You do have to, or I got a background check when I went. That's what a lot of them like to say. But we know that it's not true and that you can obtain one. Another, not loophole, but a big myth that we see a lot is, oh, they're going to find it somehow.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they think it's like some corner that you can go to in some area, and the black market's like this like tent that's set up, and you just walk in and you can grab a firearm. It's not how it works. We don't need making this easy for people. Most of the people that we see committing these heinous acts, it's just ease of access. That's what we saw in Allen. It was the ease of access. And he said, I'm just able to lie and say, I don't have anything, I don't have any mental health issues. And, in his letter that he left behind, it was, look at how it was so easy for his words. And he said, gun control in this country is a joke. So it's not that they'll go find something else. It's that we've made it so easy for people. And a lot of these decisions are not these long thought out. We do see some where they are, but very often gun violence is very spur of the moment, especially when we're talking about suicide. It's usually decided within the 5 to 10 minutes, previously. Another one, red flag legislation hasn't made its way to Texas yet, but something that we're seeing in other states is saying that, due process. There's a myth that you won't have due process with it, but there is. It still has to get approved by a judge. It's going through that way. It's not just, you can't just call in and say, I want this person's firearms taken out of their home, and they're like, all right. It is still a process. It's a very quick process, and it is a process though. And they have an opportunity to appeal that and to have those brought back into their home.
Those are great ones. And you mentioned earlier too, the whole quote unquote gun free zones. Like that is one of my pet peeves, because it's like most shootings actually happen in homes. Those are not gun free zones. And you're absolutely right. Like suicide is a huge issue. And so many people say like, oh, well, they would find another way. Actually, no, like 80% of people who try to kill themselves, if they are stopped or interrupted, will not try again. Like they get the help that they need, or they realize that, somebody is there for them and does love them. So that is also a myth. And yeah, this whole gun-free zone thing, it's really frustrating because you also have, these areas where with the people making these laws and making these bills, they're in an area that doesn't allow guns. So it's like, it's so hypocritical to say like, well, I don't want guns around me, but you can have them around you. And again, now that I'm partisan, I can say this, like that GOP convention, like no guns were allowed, but they're the ones
carry
passing
is
the
not
bill.
allowed in the
Yes.
Capitol. Now if you have a permit, you can get in, but which is still just mind blowing. But we have armed guards everywhere. And we had,
well, and our mosques, our synagogues, like these places of worship should not have to have armed guards to feel safe.
Yes, when we look at the Colleyville synagogue,
yes,
how is he, we've got to do something when it comes to private sales and those loopholes that it creates. And that it was someone that wasn't even a U.S. resident, was just here. He had just been here for, I think, less than a week by the time he purchased a weapon, and he just got it from another person at a homeless shelter.
yep.
And that he was able to, would it have stopped it? No, but had it been like, hey, you sell this, you were done, that is a very serious offense, and it was known, it comes down all, it's, again, the black market's not this corner that you go to in some bad area. It's not lit up, and it's not a literal black tent that you go under to get things. We don't have to make it easy. It should not matter if your background check takes a little bit longer. It takes a little bit longer. Maybe if people are so upset, then they can maybe address that backlog instead of saying, well, we'll just get rid of it.
Exactly. No, it's great points. And seriously, thank you again. Because yeah, like obviously you can tell when we talk that we're very passionate about this, because this, it affects our communities, it affects our friends, it affects our children. Like this is horrifying, and it doesn't have to be this way. Like Kat mentioned earlier, like we can live in a country, because I won't even say world because everyone else has their shit together. But we can live in a country, we can live in a state where we don't have to fear just driving down the road that someone is going to shoot into our car, because road rage incidents obviously have gone up significantly, which is very scary. Like every time my son goes with my husband to pick up like groceries, I'm like, be careful, like seriously, please. Like if someone tries to cut you off, just let them. Like just be careful.
Yeah, and the trauma from those is so far reaching. My husband responds to a lot of those calls.
Yes.
And just when he says, when they go back and you're showering that off of you, it's so far reaching, and we put so much on our community. And first responders are a big buzzword for people, especially police.
Yeah.
But we don't look what we're putting them through, and we only use them when it's convenient for us.
Exactly.
And that happens even at the local level. Look at your city council, it happens there, because even these nonpartisan races have become just national, just mudslinging races.
Yep.
So it's important to ask them, how do you feel about these things? Luckily, Mayor Muntz in Plano, he declared a day, for gun violence prevention, which was great. It was part of our Survivor Week that we were able to do.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can keep building that relationship, and in the future do something citywide for that. We're still in the middle of, we're not out of COVID, but we were much deeper in it, it seemed like, this past summer. So hopefully we get to this summer, we can do something citywide, countywide.
Amazing, yeah, because I know when we were at the potential making Collin County a Second Amendment sanctuary county, we were both at that meeting, and even in those elected officials, there was a lot of misinformation when it came to what was legal and what was not. Because I think one of them, she was like, oh, training is required, or something is this, and I was like, actually no. Like you'd be surprised. So yeah, like don't assume just because someone is an elected official, or that someone is involved in something, that they know the law or what's going on, because unfortunately they probably don't. And so you can be kind of that voice that says, hey, this is the reality, this is the situation, and this is how it's not safe.
Yeah, and that particular commissioner has been much quieter on a lot of things. I think she's gotten called out in a lot of things, not just the gun violence issue, but on other issues as well. And so you have to put that pressure. You can be respectful about it, but send an email and say, hey,
yes,
you said this in the meeting. I just want to let you know it's not correct. And here, let me provide you with information.
exactly.
Here's a link that can show you with what's correct, because they keep getting called. That's embarrassing for them.
Yeah.
I like to do it over Twitter. I'm not as private about it when I call them out.
Yep.
I've taken a little bit of a hiatus, but I like to do it on Twitter. And it just makes them, they have to know. If we as women have to be that much smarter and that much more knowledgeable on things, so do they.
Exactly. No, I love it, because you're right. Like public pressure does truly work. It's been mentioned before, the whole like squeaky wheel gets the grease. Like if they know that the majority of people are actually against these very loose, very bad gun bills, then they have the backing to be able to say like, oh, actually this is what everyone wants. But when they have that very loud, very vocal extremists behind them, like they're just as scared of them as everyone else is. So it's really important to make sure that they know that they're not alone to be able to stand up against this extremism.
Yes, and when it comes to guns and reproductive rights, those are the two issues that they can pull reasonable people into these extremisms, because those are two things people aren't willing to compromise on. And so they are such important issues, because all the other issues that surround it, and that, again, I'm part, but other issues I know that you support and things, They know they get them to ignore these other things that we could probably agree on that aren't policy debates
Exactly. Exactly.
because they get them in on these two things.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, you know, there are some things obviously where there is no middle ground, and you can actually talk to someone and lead them to where you are through just a very open, honest conversation. Because a lot of people just do not know. They are just uninformed. They think they have, you know, the knowledge of what's going on, but you know, the actual reality of the situation is very different. So just like Kat was mentioned, like we can be very, you know, very respectful, very calm. Every town research has amazing things on there. They've, you know, even got certain visuals where you can break certain things down for people. But yes, whether it is on Twitter, whether it is on Facebook, like make sure you follow Every Town for Gun Sense and Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense, because they have excellent information that really breaks down a lot of these myths that are very pervasive. And just because, you know, someone is, you know, super like, oh, I love guns, great, keep them locked up. like I had that conversation with several people, you know, when we were doing the NRA Day of Action, we're like, oh, you wouldn't like me, I own guns. I'm like, well, do you keep them locked up? I'm like, yes. And I'm like, well, then we're fine. Like, it's all about responsibility.
Yeah, it's finding that, like you said, that also helps to dispel that we're out to get everyone's guns. I know that in our governor race, it's going to come up a lot. There's a soundbite we're all familiar with, and so we'll see how that plays out. But that's the thought, is that's what we all want to do, is just go out and grab guns, and that's not the case. And we just want common sense laws. That's it.
Yeah,
like,
well, and it's actually interesting.
It's just a bare minimum that we've
even
tried.
after Beto said that, like there were a lot of people that were upset, but like when you actually talk with them one-on-one, like they actually agree that, you know, a lot of these, you know, quote unquote assault rifles don't belong on the streets. Like when you actually talk to a person, they will basically be where you're at. Because yeah, that was a big thing. We're like, oh, Beto said this, and it's like, you know what, yeah, and he didn't back down. He said, yes, this is not okay, and I don't mean that I'm coming to take all of your guns. I mean specifically I'm taking away this one particular thing. So it's like when you're actually able to say, like, don't walk around eggshells, don't, you know, try to walk back, because that's just going to be grabbed on. Just say, you know what, yes, this is the problem and this is how we can solve it, and this is why I support certain, you know, gun violence prevention measures. But you know, if you don't feel comfortable on something, you can say, you know what, I don't know, let me look into that, and then have that conversation either via email or, you know, text, where you can actually look stuff up, or, you know, ask somebody in Moms Demand Action, you know, yeah, or one of us to help you out with it. But you do not need to have all of the answers. You have people that have your back.
Yes, you can learn as you go, and within a year of getting involved, you too can be.
Right?
But I do have to step away. My oldest keeps popping out to tell me
Yes,
that
no, totally.
down. I got, as you can hear, he's saying he won't stop.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna step out. If anyone has any other questions, Sarah can direct them to me. But I also know she's a champion on all this. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Truly, I appreciate it. And yes, have a good evening, and thank you again.